Welcome one, welcome all to the first video of what's probably going to be many as we go through the next month or so here for the Road to Shurima Invitational Qualifiers presented by Duels of Runeterra and Team Liquid. So pretty fun stuff. Had an awesome time casting this past weekend, and we're going to be bringing you guys all the tournament action right here to the channel. So getting started here with round 2 of Swiss. As per usual, always something happens during round 1. But round 2 of Swiss, we got Pirucream and WhatAmI, both 1-0, both some pretty spectacular players. WhatAmI, obviously, we know has won plenty of tournaments himself. Awesome to see these two facing off in round 2. And actually joined by Bard, none other than Wandering Bard, casting with me for the day 1 anyways, for Saturday. Awesome time. Loved casting with him. Thank you very much for being there with me, Bard. So strap yourselves in. One of the first rounds we got for one of the Road to Shurima qualifiers, Pirucream versus WhatAmI. So let's go ahead. We'll jump into game. It looks like they are in turn 1. So we are going to do WhatAmI here versus Pirucream for round 2. Again, both players are currently 1-0.
And we've got the first instance of Frostbite midrange, I think, on camera today. We were talking about that earlier. That's like the old reliable of Runeterra right now. How do you feel about the deck in the meta currently? Obviously, it's serviceable, but would you be on it?
I honestly, you want my honest opinion? I have never really liked midrange Frostbite. I'm not going to lie. I just
heresy.
I know, but yeah, but you know what, I'm always that guy that doesn't like decks just because everybody plays them, right? So like that's kind of my thought process behind it. I just like to go against the grain. I'd rather play something fun like what we see on the side of WhatAmI, right? Like Fizz, Twisted Fate. So
that is true. Hard to go away from that deck.
Yeah, but
the shiny you play.
But there's a reason why it's good. It's like a little bit more complex way to play something like Bannerman or Scouts, right? Where Demacia is just everything gets +1/+1. We attack, we press A. Like that's how we roll with Demacia. With midrange Frostbite, it's similar. It just has more combat tricks, right? You have all those freezes to get some good trades, and then you have that OTK potential with Ashe, and a lot of card advantage.
And you have removal. You have removal. You have card advantage. You just have these tools that the Demacia deck doesn't. But I want to jump in. This is not Ashe Sejuani. This is Freljord Allegiance Overwhelm.
Oh,
this is like the Rico Rex deck.
I was just gonna say the Rico Rex special. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, Sejuani, Tryndamere, 2 copies of non-Tryndamere, Battle Fury, Brothers Bond, Decisive Maneuver, Avaros and Outriders in the house, 3 copies Alpha Wild Claw, 3 copies Ancient Yeti. Let's go! I love this deck, to be honest. I feel as yeah.
I was just gonna say I'm much more of a fan of that deck than regular midrange Frostbite. So.
yeah. This is so much more nuanced and complex, right? Like just put everything on the board and a click. Just attack face all the time. But I mean, there is a nuance to that, right? Like I'm a champion of aggro decks, and if you decide that aggro decks are like weak or easy to play, it's down to the quality of their opposition, because you do have to play around a lot of stuff to make a list like this work. However, it's almost more a deck selection question to me, right? Because this deck beats up on a lot of things, kind of like the fearsome decks. There's just lists that aren't good at fighting this kind of unusual aggro lineup where you can't rely on chump blocking the go hard list. Struggles pretty hard when you're trying to, block with these small bodies it has in the early game and assuming that's going to keep you safe while you charge up your game plan. And there's just Alpha Wild Claws crashing in for 5 and 6 damage on you. That can be a really good time to pull this deck out. On the other hand, there's stuff that it struggles against as well.
Yeah, and it does look like WhatAmI honestly off to a decent start. We have, a lot of elusives already. We already have an iterative improvement to go ahead and duplicate one of those as well, buff it up a little bit, do some more damage. But on the flip side, I mean, although WhatAmI can definitely be aggressive and be the aggressor in this matchup and really threaten lethal super early, Pirucream can probably do that just as easily with all of these big units that will not only push through overwhelm damage, but when we're throwing things like Daring Poros in front of them and stuff, they're all going to trade positively for Pirucream, which means on the following attack turn, there isn't going to be any blockers for WhatAmI.
Yeah, I mean, it really, Pirucream can be the aggressor and almost has to be. That's kind of the definition of, is this deck good? If you're forced onto the back foot playing Overwhelm, you probably should not be playing Overwhelm. And this is a deck where you can force damage, but right now you're kind of losing the race. I don't see where enough burst damage comes from, even if you have something like a Battle Fury in the extreme scenario that you're normally trying to make your opponent scared of. WhatAmI has been able to really preserve this life total through to turn 6, and now is in a great spot to win with his own elusive damage. These unblockable attackers.
Yeah, and Pirucream, so actually, I know you briefly touched on Pirucream's list, but I want to take a look at it myself because I'm curious as to how Pirucream actually deals with any of the stuff on WhatAmi's board. I mean, it's all aggression. Mm-hmm. There's Troll Chant and Culling Strike, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I think that, so this particular matchup, like I mentioned, yeah, sure, we push through Overwhelm damage. I don't think Pirucream can actually do enough damage fast enough to actually race WhatAmI with the elusives, because from what I can see, these elusives just stick around for the most part for the entire game, and there's going to be nothing that Pirucream can really do about it.
I don't know. I feel like maybe this was, I didn't see right from the start of the game because we were looking at the deck list and such, but I almost want to go back because, yeah, this is a losing situation, it looks like, for the, the Overwhelm list. I mean, I don't want to say anything too soon because there is an amount of damage being represented here. I just don't know if there's enough combat tricks to force through lethal against 17 life off just 6 mana. But, you can try and eat up a lot of blockers here. You just need to be able to do enough damage to force those elusives to block. If you can't threaten lethal, then yeah, WhatAmI is just going to let you deal an amount of damage to face and then kill you. Okay. Oh, Brothers Bond is...
It's starting to do a little bit here. The only other consideration is, like, this is gonna be close, and this is why I think WhatAmI threw the blocker underneath the Avarosian Sentry to prevent 2 more damage, even though we're taking that unfavorable trade. There's this card, and it's called Decisive Maneuver, and that card in Overwhelm decks is nuts with how much damage it can push. It can push like 20 damage on a single turn with a wide field of Overwhelm units. And that's something that I think WhatAmI needs to worry about here. I think that's why we saw that block there. If Decisive Maneuver was played, we would have been very dangerously low, actually within lethal range with a Brothers Bond and Decisive Maneuver. We would have been one off, I think, from lethal. So it's definitely close, but I think this attack just seals the deal for WhatAmI. I don't know. Even 2 Culling Strikes here just doesn't do enough.
Yeah, this reminds me of why people either play or don't play more often decks like Bannerman, right? When you are playing a fair aggro list, which is what this Overwhelm deck fundamentally is, right? Like, some decks struggle to deal with Overwhelm. It kind of feels like a trick if you're not prepared for it. But fundamentally, you're just playing these followers and attacking with them, and it leaves WhatAmI in the driver's seat. If WhatAmI has the tools to block an amount of damage, look at what you're representing, and not die, then yeah, you just get to say, okay, I block this much and then kill you. And there's almost no situation where you get blown out for doing that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we see there. So WhatAmI actually going to go up 1 game super fast there versus Pirucream. Well on his way to a 2-0 start, not just for this match, but for the tournament as well, as he did win the first round. So I want to take a look, actually, too, while we wait for them to get into this next game. What is WhatAmi's lineup looking like?
WhatAmI has Teemo Ezreal. Yes, let's go. Hex 3 of Hexcore Foundry. Let's do it. I love these decks.
So you actually mentioned earlier Teemo Sejuani, I think, and how it's starting to pop up a little bit.
Yes.
So Teemo Sejuani, to me, is a legitimately competitive deck, and Teemo Ezreal kind of is a spin-off.
It won the last tournament, I guess.
Yeah. See. So Teemo Ezreal is kind of like a spin-off of that deck. Now, I'm not entirely sold on Teemo Ezreal yet. I guess the trade-off with either champion is Sejuani allows you to stick around longer so your opponent draws more cards, so you eventually win the game. Ezreal doesn't allow you to stick around longer. It just allows you to end the game faster, playing more spells, so you don't even need to stick around longer. So I tend to prefer the Sejuani in those cases because I think you do more damage with what this deck does and having your opponent draw shrooms than anything else. But we don't get that here. Looks like it was actually banned out, as WhatAmI is now actually going with the Zoe Diana, which is another very popular Celestial deck, and this was a deck I was expecting to see a lot of today.
Yeah, tons of people love this deck list. I know I've talked with Boulevard before about how much he loves this deck. That deck was also in the tournament winning lineup of the last tournament I cast. Like it's just it's such a good deck overall that it's hard to go away from. This list, I'm sorry, I was just comparing to the list we had before. So we do only have the one Spell Thief, 3 Hushes though. This one is playing Concussive Palm. It's always interesting to see where the slots go, even if it's only 1 or 2 different. This one has a Sonic Wave, which is kind of interesting. That you really would value that effect highly. Also only 2 Sparkle Flies, so yeah, really kind of splitting the difference between what the other decks were trying to do that we've seen today.
Well, it looks like, for now anyways, WhatAmI, doesn't have something like Diana to get started and pick things off. And actually, because we're not able to deal with this Eye of the Dragon quickly, I mentioned this earlier when we saw that the Lee Sin mirror match, I guess technically Zoe too, that this is an option for the Zoe Lee Sin. You can pillar on an Eye of the Dragon or a Mountain Goat. And in this particular matchup early on, this 2/5 Eye of the Dragon is actually going to get a whole lot done because there's not going to be much that WhatAmI can do unit-wise to get rid of it, but we do have 2 Hush in hand. So at some point, I do think this Eye of the Dragon is going to get hushed. It's going to get, to a trade with something, and it will, end up dying. So right now can't do that though, because there isn't anything with 3 attack currently.
What do you think of, I mean, like you just mentioned that it's sometimes viable to do so. Right now, what I'm looking at, though, is WhatAmI has those 2 Solari Sunforges in hand, right? So unless Pirucream is going all the way with this Eye of the Dragon, and accompanying early aggro, I guess, from the goat, then that damage is most likely just going to get healed back off. And it just kind of goes to show, when you're playing a deck that's just committed to its, like, single late-game pillar game plan like this one is, oh, wow, we're really going for it now. The second Zenith Blade, I just don't know about this. Like, you're spending real resources the deck has a finite amount of that you could use on your Lee Sin later. And unless you're certain that the first Lee Sin is basically going to go unchallenged and you can afford to commit more to this early game, it kind of feels like you're half-assedly representing some sort of aggro plan where you're just going to have the damage but never mind, there's the Lee Sin. We're just curving out Pirucream, the man who has it all right now. Scrap what I was saying.
Well,
this looks terrific.
The other thing to consider, I mean, that is absolutely amazing for Pirucream. We saw two Lee Sin decks not draw it for anything. They could not find it. Now we have it on the perfect turn 6. Why is it not turn 5? Well, that's because we want that 4 mana open for something like Bastion or even a Deny. And the other point I want to make, though, about that Zenith Blade, so what you're saying is true. It definitely kind of feels awkward sometimes to be using them so early. Now you only have 1 left, and you obviously need, that overwhelm for the Lee Sin. It does thin your deck. And I know there's the argument to be made that most players make now is that I think it actually is more beneficial to thin your deck and draw Lee Sin faster playing the Zenith Blades than to sit on it, especially because then if you draw another Zenith Blade, it just feels terrible, right? So I definitely don't hate Pirucream going in with both those Zenith Blades. Maybe it's what actually led to him drawing the Lee Sin as well. But, man, this feels so good.
The deck thinning?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I guess I can't completely discount that. I'm always focused on don't trick yourself into trying to be clever and actually end up weakening your Lee Sin plan if you can't get the job done being a bad aggro deck. But when you have those and the Lee Sin, it's hard to argue against.
Yeah, and I do like so Moonlit Affliction, I know you guys talking in chat a little bit about it there. Moonlit Affliction is starting to pop up a little bit more. And in this deck specifically, when you have, Zoe Diana, this deck does typically get like large boards of units. Perfect example, we just had a Cosmic Inspiration played. This deck loves Cosmic Inspiration. It eats it for breakfast every single day. When you start having a 6-unit wide board that's all Cosmic Inspirationed up, guess what? Moonlit Affliction takes 2 blockers off the board and even silences them if they had any, crazy things that they wanted to do that turn. And that usually leads to a pretty decent OTK. I mean, think Ash. Ash does the same thing. Units get frostbitten and they can't block, and Moonlit Affliction is a 5-mana version of that.
There's a little bit of a difference between a champion who incidentally for free takes your opponent's box off the board and a card that you have to draw from your deck where it's a 5-cost spell. all it does is silence 2 units to make them unblockable. But sometimes if you build your deck around Moonlight Affliction, all you need is that effect. Like we talk about how good Hush is. This is another burst silence effect, right? So you're already playing 3 Hushes. We talked about those spell thieves, like in an ideal scenario being Hush number 4 or 5. Moonlight Affliction is Hush number 4 and 5. Yes, it's a lot more expensive, but you do also have the situation where you can just win games outright that, like, you know, you Moonlight Affliction open attack, and like what do they do about it? Or
And now the other card that somehow we actually managed to not talk about here until just now, Atrocity. Good old Atrocity.
It never goes away.
Oh my god. You know, we've seen this in so many hands in so many games, and you can't help but just think that this card is gonna be how the game ends at some point. Like, no matter what. You know, maybe we get some wide attack with Moonlight Affliction, sure. It probably doesn't do quite enough to close out the game, but that Atrocity is going to help you do that additional damage. And any of these Targon decks that are playing Targon Shadow Isles, Atrocity, such a huge swing card in these matchups, and it's something that, you know, most of the time your opponent's going to have to play around. Pirucream, honestly, you can't really play around it. You just got to kind of have to go for the victory with Lee Sin, and that's what we're seeing. We're already getting a sweet Dragon's Rage for what would be, it looks like 14 damage.
Yeah, I mean, Pirucream does have 3 copies of Deny, so I guess it has the luxury of being able to play around it by just holding up 4 mana to 7 in the late game. Probably the best answer you possibly can have. As combined with this pressure, I'm actually pretty positive about Pirucream's chances, because that is one thing about these Atrocity decks, is that, like, yeah, in the late game, you can threaten your opponent with Atrocity, but when your opponent has some answer, it's not just a guaranteed kill. It leaves you in a difficult situation where you are committing a lot to that play if you go for it, and when they're pressuring you where you have to decide one way or the other, you can easily misplay the card.
Yeah, and there's a second Atrocity, and, you know, like you said, Deny is definitely a thing for Pirucream. Having both those Atrocities in hand right now probably doesn't feel amazing for WhatAmI. I mean, we have plenty of other stuff that we can do. I mean, we have the Screeching Dragon. We have a plenty wide enough board. We can definitely start to push through a lot of damage. But here we go. We talked about it earlier. Concussive Palm, getting work done. Basically shuts down 2 attackers this turn. And with 3 attack, is going to be able to trade with, you know, something like the Charger, where it looks like we are going to throw it underneath the Charger there, get that value trade. I mean, we're going to be able to heal up with the Dragon Link too. So this, all in all, this feels pretty good for Pirucream. We're going to get another attack with Lee Sin, and we have plenty of mana to protect him for now. But WhatAmI sitting on 2 Hush? I got to say, 2 Hush and 2 Atrocity. I mean, those are definitely 2 game-changing cards. It's just going to be whether or not we can get the Atrocity off.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly, like, maybe the Atrocity by itself wouldn't be, you know, game shattering, but having the defensive option, the ideal defensive option for this deck as well, that's what's really strong. And especially the fact that you know, Hush is so cheap, you can represent them both in the same turn. You know, you don't have to go down on your mana to try and commit to a win one or the other. Yeah, I mean, I'm still not down on Pirucream's position yet. This is just like 2 decks both kind of doing well mutually. But as you said, this next stack is probably going to be really critical if you want to get the game done, because the Invoke deck's kind of running away with things.
Well, yeah. I mean, and let's say Lee Sin too, right? Like, even if we proactively Bastion, there's still 2 Hushes that we have, so we're not going to be able to get around.
Yeah,
2
really
Hushes.
hard to see that getting through.
There's the proactive Bastion to play around 1 Hush. You do get the Dragon's Rage off no matter what, though, and I think that is very crucial. I mean, right there, that's going to be the 8 damage. But there's 1 Hush, there's 2 Hush, and now that's actually only going to be 4 damage to face, and this Screeching Dragon just goes back to hand.
Can we save this Lee? Oh yeah, okay, we're going to dip it. Sorry, it's going to kick it out of the way. Still, there's no Deny. We just played so many mirrors that I was expecting that to go away, but yeah, I guess that doesn't seem so bad, because again, you're pressuring on life total. Yep. So yeah, okay, you're not going to kill them, but I mean, who's coming out ahead there? You still now WhatAmi's dropped to 2 life. Your Lee is safe because you know that as long as you got that attack off first, you're going to kick the dragon out of the way. And now WhatAmi has to scramble to try and heal back up while trying to close, or at least set up an open attack with this Moonlight Affliction to win on the spot.
Which honestly, I mean, is looking.
Oh wow, that's just it, huh? Okay, we've got the dragons, but still. Can you have enough blockers and enough life? There's the dust in hand to trigger the Nightfall.
The issue here, I think, is that depending on this attack, like those two Dragonlings are huge. This attack might be able to be thwarted with Pirucream not really spending too many resources. If Pirucream does need to spend a lot of resources and for whatever reason gets to a point where WhatAmI can freely play Atrocity, I think that's where we need to start worrying. And I think that's what WhatAmI is trying to do. You know, if WhatAmI gets more resources out, we're going to be in a good spot to play Atro.
WhatAmI has mana for, like, Nightfall, Moonlight Affliction, Attack, Atrocity. You don't play around Deny like that, but I mean, at this point, you know, it's like, do you go for it right now? Or do you try and play the board and you have, like, some hope? Like, is there any way to get around the Lee Sin attack next turn? Can you... If you Atrocity the thing that Lee is going to kick, does he end up damaging through to you in any way? I can't remember seeing that interaction.
Well, yeah, no. If you Atrocity what he kicks, you prevent half the damage. So you prevent.
He has Overwhelm. Yeah, right. The Overwhelm, of course, we've granted it to him. So yeah, you'd still die. Hopefully, this lifelink gets you up high enough lifesteal to survive that, maybe, and then you have more options. But we're just committing. It looks like not enough to commit the no blocks yet, though.
Yeah,
we have that charged and ready.
See how Pirucream lines this up. I mean. The thing with WhatAmI is that okay, wow. So actually, I don't hate this. No. This gets out a Deny most likely. If it doesn't, then you're in a great spot. But it probably gets out a Deny, and what that does is it's one less Deny that Pirucream has for next turn, where we could potentially double Atrocity, right? So
yeah,
I think this puts WhatAmI in the best possible spot to win. It's still iffy depending on if Pirucream has 2 Denies. So it's just going to come down to next turn, and if we can get one of these Atrocities to go through.
Yeah, this is like the second line where it's like, well, I saw the easy line where you just commit and hope, and I was trying to work out whether there was a viable alternative. WhatAmI decides it's best to just, force out the Deny with the removal, and still going for the attack. Okay, fair enough. I guess now you've seen the Deny, but you no longer have any ability to affect this combat, so we can favorably trade off this Dragonling here.
I mean... This forces Pirucream to set up at least a couple bad trades, maybe. If Pirucream is greedy and just goes for the lifesteal and the Dragonlings, then WhatAmi's in a spot...
Vulnerable Atrocity.
Yeah. Then the Atrocity is actually now in range, which I think that's what WhatAmi's hoping for. See, so we're holding back these Dragonlings and still pushing through 3 damage when everything is said and done, even after this lifesteal. That now puts us at exactly 11 on the Eclipse Dragon with Atrocity. Oh, yeah. Now we're a little bit off. That feels bad.
Yeah, hush down. But, and now the Lee's back. Because I was going to say, well, maybe you're even setting up a situation where you could, even if you don't weaken them enough, maybe you have an option to remove Lee with Atrocity, where there's one more way to deal with it. But, of course, the Lee deck is not without the ability to barrier Lee up, and it's just going to take this damage through.
Yeah, and, Pirucream... Or WhatAmI doing a good job of getting Pirucream's spells and options and defensive plays out of Pirucream, but it's not going to be enough. I mean, at the end of the day, we still have at least one spell to give Challenger to Lee Sin, probably at burst speed, and that's going to mean game. There's just no other way for WhatAmI to prevent this, so we just have to kind of... We don't even have enough mana for double Atrocity now, to be honest with you.
And Pirucream using cards like Hush as well that aren't the best, in terms of... defensive tools, right? So we're using the right spells on the right turns, which is really the heart of this Lee Sin deck, to make sure that you're posing the best possible threat now on this attack.
Yep. Yeah, and there it is.
And that's it. Yeah. Fair enough.
All right, Pirucream gonna take
that was a good game though.
Yeah, that's gonna bring it to a game 3 now. And again, both players 1-0, so we're currently relying, we're currently vying for what would be a 2-0 start to this tournament for both players, and both players are more than capable of making top cut and actually going pretty far here. So this could be a pretty spicy game 3, I think.
Exciting. Do we know which deck was banned?
The
Teemo Ez deck was banned, you said, but what was banned for Pirucream? I guess we saw. I guess it was the Elise TF deck then, the Go Hard.
So
we saw.
I think you're right. I do think you're right.
Because we saw the Overwhelm list. We saw the Overwhelm list. So that means that it's going to be Overwhelm against Zoe Diana. No, Overwhelm against Those are the decks that lost. I don't know why that was so hard for me just then. Yeah, bots in the chat. Sorry everybody. But yeah, it looks like the Targon Invoke deck, the Nightfall Invoke deck versus Overwhelm, maybe that's an interesting one.
Sorry, taking care of this
With
the spot
Yeah, of
problem
course,
here.
of course, just cleaning out taking out the trash. So cover here. I mean, against the old deck, you have cards like Solari Shieldbearer. You have units that can absorb this damage. You have the lifesteal from the Solari Sunforge, which is going to be hugely important because maybe the Invoke deck can't take over the game as quickly as we saw the Elusive deck punish a kind of slow or bad draw from the Overwhelm list, but it's like this fair aggro deck, you get to pick your battles against it. Pirucream is just hoping that the board that he presents is like so lethal that you are forced into bad trades, not because like he tricks you with some effect, but just because your alternative is death. And you just get run over. But I don't know about that. Like, if there's an early Zoe, like, all the cards that Zoe generates are so good against that kind of game plan. Even stuff just like Pale Cascade and Hush, right? These really cheap tricks mess up combat so badly in some situations. So I do feel like, along with the healing, WhatAmI should be well equipped to handle this kind of pressure. No Zoe in this opener, though. So...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is an interesting matchup. I mean, again, this is not... We saw this deck. It's not a deck that we're or at least I'm very familiar with anyways. We don't see it a whole lot.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of Overwhelm matchups, right?
And
this is theory craft.
I do think Pirucream is going to be able to be the one to start with a whole heck of a lot of tempo here. And I think Pirucream, I want to say, has the advantage in this matchup. Now, I could be wrong, but if we're able to curve out nicely, I think that Pirucream is going to have too many large threats for WhatAmI to deal with. We see a Falling Comet, which I think was a good pickup by WhatAmI, because 100% that's going to need to be used to get rid of some large unit that's going to come down either turn 4, 5, or 6. So we're definitely going to need that, but I don't know if that one Falling Comet is going to be enough. That's a huge amount of mana investment, too, to get rid of a unit.
Yeah, well, at least in this case, you're probably removing a unit that cost as much as the Comet itself. So, I mean, right now, you mentioned, like, curving out. Pirucream, was that your first followers on turn 3 in Avaros and Trapper? That already kind of feels like you're not necessarily curving out. Ooh. I would have wanted to see, like, Omen Hawks or Sentries. That's a pretty good draw, though. We got the Yeti. Yeah, high rolled that. But here's the Zoe as well. If we can preserve this Zoe and not have to chump with it, again, just generating, like, stuns and silences and things off of that can be very powerful. We've got Pale Cascade available as well.
Yeah, it looks like we are going to Pale to... Looks like trade the...
Yeah, the Trapper.
Trade the Priestess with the Trapper. So this is actually a good amount of damage prevented by WhatAmI. So I do like how this is looking. And with, like you said, yeah, I agree. We high rolled the Yeti, but the Trapper on 3, not having anything prior to that, I do think feels a little bit bad for Pirucream. So we really have to have a pretty solid unit here for turn 5.
Because that's the other thing about playing fair aggro, and this is, I mean, you're not quite as much of a curve out deck as Bannerman because you can win with like just one unit on the board, Battle Fury, and go through their blocker, but you don't need the multiplicative effect of the Bannerman. That being said, you still want to be curving out because there's no real way to accelerate your damage or your game plan if you have a slow start. As Pirucream, you're just behind from that point on. And it's really concerning to, if you're trying to rely on something like Battle Fury to end the game, to be playing against a deck with Hush. So we'll see how this works out. But right now, I think WhatAmI is already maybe through the hardest part of the game and is now wielding really good tools to take things on from here. We've got Burst Healing, we've got the Eclipse Dragon to represent the late game, we've got Removal, and even the Sisters in hand are just really great tools. There's almost nothing that feels bad against a fair deck like this, except for, cards that don't affect the board.
Yeah, I gotta say, now that we've generated all these Celestials, I mean, A, we've actually generated a lot of Celestials, which feels really good, but B, they are all 100% pertinent to everything Pirucream's going to play, and it starts with this Equinox. This Equinox in this matchup is such a low mana investment for such a huge tempo swing. It doesn't look like it because, sure, you're really only getting rid of one keyword on this Yeti, and it's still a 5/5. But that Overwhelm keyword is absolutely gigantic in this matchup. We can just continue to chump block that now and not have a care in the world. So this card actually right here is doing a lot for WhatAmI.
Yeah, exactly. And what I was saying earlier in the game about curving out and like making sure you have multiple threats on board, the reason that Pirucream wasn't able to get enough damage through in the earlier matchup with this deck was because you only had a couple of overwhelm attackers. Like it is the overwhelm deck, but there's only about half of the threats have overwhelm, or half of the followers have overwhelm. And the ones that don't, like when you don't have all overwhelm blockers, cards like Decisive Maneuver that you were really hyping up before, they don't feel as strong, right? Like you don't have as much damage force through because your opponent can just not block the units with overwhelm, block the units that don't have overwhelm, and then it's almost like your overwhelm keyword isn't generating value anymore because you're able to prevent damage with your chump blockers just like against a normal deck. So the more units you can take overwhelm off of, it just amplifies that effect.
Yeah, no, 100% correct. And you know what I do want to mention from the first game that we saw too as we get back in here because client froze up there for a second. The Battle Furies, we actually didn't get to see those used in the first game where we saw WhatAmI honestly quite handedly deal with Pirucream's deck. One Battle Fury at 8 mana could just win you the game. The card is definitely a card you need to play around. So that might be kind of that last push that Pirucream goes for towards the end of the game here. Especially now, we're dealing 7 damage thanks to the Alpha Wild Claw. We are now well within striking distance of just one attack turn closing it out for Pirucream.
Yeah, the Hush is in hand though for WhatAmI, which is good. And WhatAmI has been in the first game was able to stay very high on life, which is like the other main defense against Battle Fury is just don't let yourself be one shot by it because it is a pretty significant tempo loss to spend effectively a turn's worth of mana on a combat trick. If it wins you the game, terrific. But if that card gets beaten somehow, then you are definitely behind most of the time. But, oh wow, Pirucream actually reloading here. The Ancient Yeti going to help a lot. Suddenly 2 sizable overwhelm attackers. That's what I want to see. The Battle Fury plan doesn't feel as reliable here, but if you can keep control of the board and keep pressuring WhatAmI, just keep reloading with these large overwhelmers for as long as possible. I mean, that is the name of the game, so Pirucream maybe has a better draw this time, maybe able to work your way through.
Well, we'll see what Pirucream decides to do, right? Just going to pass back over, and here we go. We got 2 overwhelm units, only 1 hush. So if there's an open attack, we can't right now deal with both overwhelm units. If there is development, we would then have enough time to play something like Falling Comet or even another Eclipse Dragon if we really wanted to. We don't really have a good Nightfall activator for it, though, if we're going for that. But getting this Falling Comet down onto something like the Alpha Wild Claw feels like it would be pretty good for WhatAmI right now. We do have heal as well. So even if there is an open attack, we do have this star shaping to fall back on as well, just to put us back to a range where it's going to be a little bit more difficult, I think, for Pirucream to reach up to, even with a Battle Fury.
Yeah, that's what I said. WhatAmI just has, like, the deck has all the tools, but WhatAmI also drew this really good mix of effects where it's very difficult to imagine how Pirucream can, like, weave through them. Again, because I must return to this, and I'm a fan of it, this deck that Pirucream's playing, but it is so fair, right? Like, there's not denies, there's not, like, hugely explosive stuff where you can trick WhatAmI. Like, you attack, WhatAmI blocks enough damage to not die, and then heals. If you go for a combat trick, you get hushed. Like, it's hard to see how WhatAmI fails to defend so long as these cards are available.
Hold on, back up. The card games aren't supposed to be fair.
I mean, look, in card games in life, no one tells you, don't play fair. But if you look at who wins, generally not the fair decks.
Yeah. Generally the person playing the card that needs to get nerfed next patch.
Okay, and I should clarify as well, like, it's good to laugh about it, but when I say fair versus unfair, I do not mean broken versus balanced, right? Because a deck like this can be broken. I mean, it's a ways back in time now, but there was a period where Bannerman felt like unquestionably the best deck in the game, and everyone was just on it all the time, right? And that's the fairest list you can have. But I suppose a fair deck means that it always gives you the chance to respond. Yep. There's nothing that it does that's like Lee Sin where your cards don't line up against it and it beats you guaranteed. Like you said, almost everything WhatAmI has feels impactful against Pirucream, and that's because it is. Yeah. Like, the deck is just winning through combat the way the game's meant to be played, and so almost all cards are going to have some sort of way to interact with that. You just have to hope you outclass them.
Yeah, I like how you're kind of separating the 2 classes of deck there, too, because I agree, right? There's responsive decks and there's very, like, straightforward, I'm going to put stuff on the field and they're going to do their job attacking. And this is WhatAmI is a very responsive deck. I mean, we have so many things to just deal with whatever it is Pirucream could possibly throw at us. And that's one of the reasons I think why Celestials have been so damn good lately. Like, everybody's playing.
Invoke is just such a mechanic.
Man. Yeah, it's a card. Like, it does some pretty good stuff. I mean, Star Shaping too. You know, the idea that we can heal for 5 here on top of being able to generate another impactful card over the next 2 turns is insane. But looks like we're just taking 9, which I like. Again, 4 is not 0, right? We're alive.
Yeah, without Star Shaping, that would have been a lot more tense, right? But I think, even though Pirucream obviously can't see the hand, I think the Star Shaping is nearly assumed at that amount of mana. Without that threat of that card, I think Pirucream almost certainly has something in hand that could have threatened lethal, but you can't afford to commit a turn where you spend all your mana to deal more damage right now, and then your opponent, like you said, doesn't just heal it off, reversing that, but like generates their next turn's play. And especially when the plays are game-ending like this, it's so crazy to think that your card that you need to save yourself, your best defensive card, also has now just created this immediately game-threatening attack.
Man, and another one, baby. We got another Star Shaping to even just further put us out of the reach of Pirucream. But I gotta say, though, like, there's still 2... Okay, make that 3 Overwhelm units on Pirucream's field. Currently, really only dealing with 2 of them between Comet and Hush.
Okay, we've got something. I was about to say, if there's not a maneuver here, you might just be dead, but does have the stun. It's a bit of a sad decisive maneuver, but it's definitely decisive. I love not being dead. 9 isn't 0 either, shit.
Alive isn't dead. Yeah.
This is the kind of high-level analysis you come to the stream
100%.
for. Like, being not dead, better than being dead.
This just
and now Pirucream's position, tremendous. Not being dead, able to make an attack next turn, that's what I call value.
Oh, wow.
That's definitely worth a 5 mana
I knew
card.
it was a good idea having you on the cast. I knew it, Bard.
I love to be here. I'll love it even more if this Overwhelm deck wins, because I am a fair deck player. I love to just see the aggro deck get there in the red zone, which is where Pirucream is right now, probably for the last time, right? Like, you get the sense that if you keep just throwing bodies into the grinder, like, not only is Pirucream nearly out of cards, but WhatAmI is like starting to get better and better card quality, right? Like, this Phoenix is going to trade off here and survive to threaten a huge attack next turn. You know there's probably an as big Celestial about to come out. Even if this atrocity doesn't get the job done, it's hard to see if Pirucream can, you know, survive to make another attack.
Yeah, I mean, as it currently stands, this is 6 damage getting pushed through. But see, the other problem, though, with Atrocity, I mean, I don't know if Pirucream is going to survive. I think this is just the last possible push that we had in us, and those Star Shapings added up. You know, we have another one in hand, again, at 1, totally comfortable at 1 life. This is fine. Everything's fine, right?
This is the difference between playing an aggro deck like that has burn in it, like any of the Piltover decks, and playing an aggro deck that does not have burn. It's like, you would never dare to block down to just 1 life and then start spending mana against a deck that had Get Excited and Mystic Shot. But against this deck, it's like, what's Pirucream gonna do? 10 mana, nothing you can do hurts me. You've attacked, and now I can breathe a sigh of relief. It's almost like Pirucream's already passed the turn, because you know that nothing Pirucream does right now is going to be impactful until a whole other turn cycle is finished and he gets the attack token back. Like, there's not even a rally.
And this is why I'm so happy you said rally. I was just going to say, and this is why we play Katarina.
Rally makes sense. Rally makes sense. It's the same thing, right? Like, imagine the blowout, right? Like, we talk about Battle Fury representing a lot of damage out of nowhere. That's this non-flexible 8 mana card. You think about a Katarina, it represents probably more damage in this deck if you can get the rally.
Hell, if he was still at 1, it would have represented lethal.
Oh my god. Can you imagine flex if you were to just play a Katarina out of hand on turn, like, 13, and then just throw a knife at them?
You're dead. Take that, man.
It counts as 2 wins. But I mean, WhatAmI putting on a clinic there? I'm not saying the Pirucream play badly either, but this is what happens when you play a deck like this. You kind of just put your faith in the draw and the hand of the gods, and a bit in the hands of your opponent, and those are able hands in this case.
All right, WhatAmI taking it. Gonna start 2-0 in the tournament. We'll see if WhatAmI can claim a spot at the Invitational. You do need to win the tournament just to get invited to the Invitational with another special, like, last chance qualifier being for all the X and 1 people at the end of the day. We'll get into a little bit more of that when we start the top cut videos. But as always, everybody stay healthy, stay positive. I hope shit just works for you, and peace out.